My name's Sam, I'm the Managing Director of Arborcraft Tree Services. So what we're going to talk about today is we're just doing a brief overview about what makes a good tree, formative pruning, what formative pruning is, how to find a good tree, and just get rid of some common misconceptions, I suppose, around trees. We've teamed up with Hamish out at Specialty Trees. He's been nice enough to let us come out here and do some filming. Listened a lot about the trees, and it's the only place I buy trees from. This is just a little bit about pruning and how this is where our two different sides of the industry really come into play. Hamish is going to talk about how they prune in the nursery, and then I'm going to talk about how when I'm planting a tree and selecting a tree, I look at what the tree is going to be used for and how we actually prune it. So probably Hamish can start off talking about why they prune what they prune in the nursery, and then we can have a chat about how we prune out in the field a little bit differently.
Good, thanks Sam. The thing with the nursery is that we don't know what the end use of the tree is going to be, and so we try and use a system where we provide the tree so it can be used for multiple purposes. So all these trees have got a central leader, or what we would like to have is a central leader. We pick these trees because there's some bifurcations in them, so we can actually show you what we're talking about. But if we look at this Syzygium here, we've actually got a bifurcation here. Now, what we will do is actually rectify that. This tree is going to probably end up as a screen. It may end up in as a street tree somewhere, or all sorts of things. We really don't know what it's going to be used for. But we've got to assume that it's going to be used as a tree. If we just leave it as a screen, then it reduces the things that we can do. So what I would do, I'll just remove some of this so you can actually see what we're looking at. And so we can actually see that bifurcation there. We can expose that. So what we've got is this bifurcation here, and there's included bark. So included bark is where the bark is like that. The two branches are attached like that. And what happens is that over time, both those grow, and so you end up with a fault in the tree. Now, if it's a hedge, it doesn't really matter because it's never going to get big enough and put too much force on it. But if it's a tree, if it's going to be used for a tree, then that's not good. So what we want to do is either suppress this right back so it becomes a proper branch, and you can see that it's a really strong up here, and it's actually challenging for the dominance. And you can see the movement away here. It's a dead giveaway, is this movement away here. It indicates that this bifurcation is quite strong. So what we want to do, if it's in the nursery here, we'll either reduce it right back, so we'll take that out there, and I'll just expose that a little bit so you can see. And so we've taken it off there. I call that a Gilman cut. I'm not sure it's a reduction cut. And so what we've done is flattened this out. So now we've got clear dominance here and much less dominance there. And so that's really important from a structural point of view. What will happen in the next little while is that will actually straighten, and it will become more dominant that way. And we would also sort the top out here a little bit so that we've got a dominant top as well, something like that. So we've got that structure back. The other choice is to actually take that right out, and often we would do that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so from my perspective, if we were to, mostly like Hamish was saying, we would plant these if people want to screen in domestic life. So what we would have done is we would have just clipped the tips in to make a nice even top, started to clip the sides in, just trying to create a nice face so that we can really get that square screen look that people want. If we were to do for a street tree or a tree in someone's backyard, we would have done exactly the same. Something you've got to remember about formative pruning, this is the most important pruning you can give to a tree. I watch people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on trying to rectify something that could have been fixed here. The tree's still very dynamic, it can put on leaf, it can defend itself against decay and all the rest of it. A cut like this is nothing in the life of the tree. A cut like that is really going to do some damage to the tree, and you're going to get decay starting, and that's when we start to see real problems in trees, and it will be the death of the tree eventually if we're making large cuts like that. So it's important we really start looking at formative pruning. I can't stress it enough, that formative pruning is the best pruning. This is cheap, it's quick, it's easy to do good formative pruning. If I'm trying to rectify that in a 15-metre tree, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, the equipment you're going to need, and the cost of it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, that's right.
It's probably cheaper to take the tree out in the long run and do it.
Let's start again.
The other thing I might just quickly mention is a trick when you're doing hedges. Always make, even though we always make our trees narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. and we were laughing about having wide hips before. And it's really clear, it's really key for good hedges when you're trimming hedges to actually taper them into the top, because if you don't make that tree work at the bottom, they'll actually shed those bottom branches. Yeah,
that's right.
So just when you're hedging, it's
a little bit. It's
just
gradual.
a little bit, and it just makes an enormous difference to how the tree will form.
It makes it a lot better. The other thing to think about when we're looking at hedges is just bear in mind that as these trees develop into hedges, we cut them more and more. Something I see a lot of is they get so thick, the water doesn't get through to the bottom. All right, so something to think about. I see it a lot. People say, "Oh, my tree's really stressed. I don't know what's going on in my hedge." I get there and I dig around, and the soil's bone dry.
It's just really dry. Yep. This is Japanese maple Acer palmatum, and I just thought we'd show you a few. We've just really been talking about evergreen trees so far, and to have a look at a deciduous tree. It's early spring now, or getting towards mid-spring, so we've got lots of extension growth happening. So that's the new growth on this tree so far this year. So it's really grown away. It's been very wet, so it's really grown away, but it's looking fantastic. But they're very soft at the moment, so we're just going to be really careful. What I thought we'd do is look at the structure of this tree and what we're trying to do in the nursery, and that is that we still got this dominant branch at the top, but we leave structure all the way down. So we're actually leaving all these branches on the tree to provide energy to the tree. Through photosynthesis, this tree will be really working hard through photosynthesis, developing energy for itself, and the more we can do that, the more self-sufficient that tree becomes. Again, we've got that dominant leader all the way through as straight as we can keep it, and then this triangular structure that we try and develop here. We did pull this tree out because it has a few little issues, and we'll clean it up a little bit so we can actually see into that space. And you can see how crowded it is in this space. And if I just turn it a fraction towards the camera, we can actually start seeing this problem opening up there. And this is a real problem in these trees. So in the end, and we should have taken this out over the winter period, but that structure there will actually shorten the life of this tree. So if we leave it there, that will shorten the life of this tree. So, and you can see this new growth coming. So it's false economy to keep that, because if we get rid of it now, the tree itself will recover and grow out quickly. And a small cut now on that tree is much better than a big cut later when it's in the ground.
Definitely.
Right. So I'm actually going to take that branch out. I'll just swap around onto that other side so I can do it quickly. I'll use my sharp secateurs. All right, so we're going to cut here. Where the decisions are about where to cut, and you can see that where it changes colour, and that's called the branch collar. And so what I try and do is I get close to that as I can, but I make the cut as small as possible. Sam might have a different version of that. So what I would do is I would come in about there, or come into there. Now, secateurs are really important. That's our blade, and that's the anvil on that side. You want the blade to be on the piece that you're keeping, and that means that it's going to cut through, and so any bruising from the anvil side is actually taken away with the piece that you're removing. Here's our branch collar. I'm going to make that cut as small as possible, and just ease it through. Acer is really hard wood. It's really hard. So make sure your secateurs are sharp when you do it. So there's a nice. It's a small cut, and it's sloped away so the water won't sit on it. And we've actually fixed that. And let that go, Sam. And
look at that.
In about a week, you won't even know where that was. The tree itself will recover from that. So don't be frightened of making those cuts. Even now in the spring, that'll bleed a little bit, but it'll recover quite quickly. We've similar problem up here where we haven't taken that one off, and so I'm going to nip that one off as well. And now we've got a much better structure on the whole tree, and this branch here will develop, and so it'll fill this space very quickly, and we'll be back to we wouldn't even notice that had been done.
Just like Hamish was saying, it's important when we're making cuts that our tools are sharp and we're using good quality tools. You know, if we're going to be using blunt tools, you're going to wreck your tree. The other thing, like Hamish was saying, from my perspective, what Hamish is saying is exactly right. When I was to plant this tree, usually this would be a feature in someone's yard or something, I'd start looking at where all these branches are going to be in 5 years' time. Start looking at what we're actually trying to develop and what the person wants from the tree, and that really depends on how we actually look at the formative pruning. If someone's planting this in a group of 5, we prune it a little bit differently than if we've got a feature tree. Really start looking at that's spot on, that cut. That's good.